Welcome to the CondoVultures.com podcast with your host, Peter Zalewski, a Miami real estate broker, Wall Street consultant, and expert witness. This podcast is focused on identifying real estate buying opportunities in the South Florida condo market of Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties. The CondoVultures.com podcast is not authorized by the South Florida real estate industry and will most likely annoy many of the region's talking heads. This podcast will feature straight talk and salty language that could be offensive to some. Please remember that past investment success does not determine future gains, especially in South Florida's volatile condo market. For more information, please visit CondoVultures.com.
Welcome to Miami Reporters Roundtable. I'm your host, Peter Zalewski from Condo Vultures. If you're tuning into this podcast, you are going to hear a conversation by current and former journalists talking about some of the biggest stories that have occurred within the last week. Purpose of the podcast is to help you, the audience, understand what's kind of really going on behind the scenes. The podcast is dedicated towards trying to eliminate or think out some of the fluff and hyperbole that exists in the South Florida real estate market. Down here, people are selling you anything and everything, and this group of journalists are going to help them basically understand what's going on. I was a journalist for 13 years. After the fact, I wrote a column for the Miami Herald as well as the Miami Real Deal, and all the other journalists have track records that are far superior to mine. So let me go ahead and start to introduce all of our journalists. We're going to start off with a gentleman who was a reporter for more than 25 years, worked at a variety of different publications in Florida. Right now, he has a public relations and marketing firm called Gruss Communications. Nobody else but John Gruss. If you want to get a hold of John, go to his website, GrussPR.com. That's GRUSSPR.com. What's going on, Mr. Gruss?
Hey, Peter. I'm glad to be back on the No Fluff podcast.
The No Fluff podcast. We try to eliminate the fluff, and we appreciate the straight talk. You've given us some great straight talk in recent weeks, and we're going to continue down that path. Who else do we have on the podcast this week? We have a gentleman who was a journalist for over 20 years, who wrote about white-collar crime, did restaurant reviews. Right now, he does consulting as he's public relations expert. His name is John Fakler. If you want to get a hold of John, you can get him at Fakler@consultant.com. That's Fakler @consultant, singular.com. What's going on, Mr. Fakler?
Hiya, Peter. I'm tremendously excited to be back on the podcast.
We are happy to have you back.
Thank you.
Mr. Fakler, I got an email asking about birds. We've been doing this podcast. This is our third season. You used to complain about the birds singing too much and being happy, and it sort of ruined your day and it made you get up early. Any updates on your birds? One of our emails asked.
Well, I moved since we had our initial podcast where I was being attacked by birds. The birds here are sing-song birds. I've got them all over the place. My neighbors got them. My landlord's got them. So they wake me up at inopportune times of the day. But it's better than being attacked. So I can't complain.
All right. Fantastic. Great to hear. And now our rotating journalist is on her maiden voyage on the Miami Reporters Roundtable. She's a journalist. She's been in the business more than 25 years. Her work has appeared out in Los Angeles as well as here in Miami. Bylines over in the Miami Herald, the Los Angeles Daily News. She's even taught over at FIU's journalism school. It's no one else but Donna Evans. If you want to get a hold of Donna, you can reach her at, and this is a very interesting email address, cocoparkland@gmail.com. That's COCOPARKLAND@gmail.com. What's going on, Donna?
Hey, Peter. Happy to be here. Thanks for asking.
We are so happy to have you here on the podcast. So I know I've been bugging you, trying to get you on the podcast, because I know you're going to bring some great context to our podcast. You like to dish it straight. And the good thing about our podcast is salty language is permissible, and we're looking for straight talk. So hopefully you can do that.
Fuck yeah.
Exactly what I want to hear. So we're going to take a commercial break. But before we do, let me sort of lay out the rules of engagement so the audience knows what they're in for. We're going to go through 6 stories that I handpicked. I asked all of our journalists to go ahead and give them a read and give us sort of their understanding of what they think is really sort of going on. And what I would suggest to you, the audience, if you have any questions or comments, you don't like something we're saying, or you want to push back, send an email to inquiry@condovultures.com. That's INQUIRY@condovultures.com. In addition to that, if you're listening to this podcast on a traditional platform, such as Apple, such as Google, Spotify, anything like that, we actually have video formatting, our platform. So if you want to check us out, you can go to any platform that provides for video, such as Spotify. You can also check us out on YouTube, where the handle is Condo Vultures TV. So with that being said, we're going to take a commercial break. On the other side of the break, we're going to get into our first 3 stories.
It's a simple formula, and it works. Buy low, sell high. We're Condo Vultures, and when it comes to your real estate, we help you buy low. At Condo Vultures, we represent the buyer, and now's the time to buy. Log on to condovultures.com for more information. Condovultures.com. And remember, before you sell high, you have to buy low. Featured in the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, 60 Minutes, and Time Magazine. Condo Vultures Realty, a licensed Florida real estate brokerage capitalizing on the condo correction since 2006.
Welcome back to the Miami Reporters Roundtable. I'm your host, Peter Zalewski. We're going to get in the first 3 stories that I handpicked, sent off to the journalists, asked them to read, and now we're going to discuss what their thoughts are on these particular stories. We're going to start off with John Gruss. John, this is a piece that's coming out of the Miami Herald. I'm going to read you the headlines. I'll read you the first few graphs. Then I'm going to ask you to sort of provide your take on it. So here we go. Headline: flood insurance costs soar in South Florida. New rates will double, even triple for many. That's the head. Here's the first couple graphs. Brace for a few years of flood insurance rate hikes, South Florida, and they're going to be steep, doubling, even tripling for thousands of homeowners. FEMA has changed the way it calculates flood insurance prices. Instead of relying on old flood zone maps covering broad areas, it's now basing premium prices on more factors, such as properties distant from the ocean, rainfall levels, and the cost to rebuild a home. Last month, for the first time, FEMA shared estimates for what that will mean for the average flood insurance premium by zip code. For the worst hit zip codes in South Florida, which is 33469, a coastal Palm Beach County stretch that covers parts of Jupiter and Tequesta, that'll mean a 342% price increase on average. In most expensive zip codes for flood insurance in South Florida, 33149, which covers Key Biscayne, average premiums will rise north of $7,000 a year. Some important qualifiers: the premium hikes won't hit all at once for existing policyholders, and not everyone will see an increase. FEMA estimates that about 20% of Florida policyholders will actually see their premiums drop under the new pricing regime known as Risk Rating 2.0. John, what do you make of that? We have a bunch of newbies who came down to South Florida during the pandemic. They were all fleeing the high taxes in New York, and it was going to be much cheaper to live down here. Lo and behold, they buy themselves a piece of dirt. They buy themselves a house. Now they might be looking at insurance costs that might actually push out what they were paying in taxes in New York. So what say you, John?
Yeah, well, I mean, FEMA has been revising its maps for several years now, and they've warned us that this was coming. And indeed, if you buy a house today, your flood insurance premium is probably going to be a whole lot more than what the previous owner paid. And it's not just residential properties, but commercial properties as well. So if you own a business, if you have a building that's in a flood zone, I mean, be prepared to pay significantly higher premiums. I mean, that being said, for years, flood insurance premiums were basically subsidized by the federal government, and you didn't have to pay a whole lot for flood insurance. And of course, we've had all kinds of storms. Florida properties have increased in value significantly, and claims have gone up. So it makes sense that those rates are going up. Except the problem now is, we've waited so long to readjust all those rates that they're going to be massive, especially for people who are buying properties. I know existing property owners will see those rates gradually rise over time. But if you're going to buy a new house, you're going to pay substantially more than the previous owner. So yeah, it's going to have an effect on real estate sales. It could make homes more unaffordable than they even are now. And yeah, and don't forget about the commercial property owners.
That's a great point, John. Just anecdotally, I told this story a few episodes ago. A friend I know had a duplex in Coconut Grove, which is it's a desirable location in the Miami area. A duplex, which is 2 units, and he was paying $12,000 a year, or effectively $500 per unit per month. Lo and behold, because of the insurance increase, he now went to $60,000 from $12,000. So what he tried to do is sell the property, dump it off to somebody else. He's got a lot of value so-called value because of the appreciation. all offers that came in, once the due diligence were done, they realized how much the insurance was and they negotiated them down on what they were willing to pay him, because now they got to make up for the insurance. So anybody who's very proud of the fact that their valuation has gone up, well, there are some drawbacks to that, including rebuilding costs, which is what the story sort of alludes to. So that was a great take on it, Sean. Donna, let's go to you. We're going to go to you with our second story. This is coming out of the Commercial Observer. Now, what we're looking for sort of a take on the Wynwood area, and that's what the story's about. You may or may not be an expert in foreclosure, but you are an expert in sort of what goes on in and around Miami, and especially downtown Miami. So we're looking for that kind of take as to whether or not this kind of makes sense. So headline, lender sells foreclosed Wynwood site for $26 million. First couple graphs. Gamma Real Estate sold a foreclosed development site in Miami's Wynwood district for $26 million. Property records show the New York-based seller gained control of the 1-acre assemblage at 2825 Northwest 2nd Avenue last year through a foreclosure auction after the New York-based owner, the collective, went bankrupt. In 2019, Gamma had lent the now-defunct co-living company $23 million for a mixed-use property. And in 2021, Miami's Urban Development Review Board approved the 12-story development site for the location, but it never broke ground. The approved plans included 180 residential units, 70 hotel rooms, 9,500 square feet of ground floor retail space. Jonathan Kelko, president of Gamma Real Estate, declined to reveal the buyer, known in records only as 2825 Wynwood Holdings, but did divulge that it's a sophisticated institutional investor already active in Florida. So Donna, my question to you is, can you lay out for the audience Wynwood? What's it like? What was it? Where it's going? And how the hell do you buy a piece of dirt in Wynwood and ultimately go bankrupt on it and be forced to sell it through foreclosure? Does that kind of make sense, or is there maybe something missing from the story? So what's your take on it, Donna?
I mean, Wynwood has been exploding for years. I would say about 15 years ago, it would be utterly unrecognizable to any of the folks that are like going down Northeast 2nd Avenue now, with like all the restaurants and all the bars. And I mean, my God, I popped in for a drink and it was $17. I'm like, I'm good, thanks. So it was a vodka Red Bull, please. It was $17. So no, but the property, like it's been steadily increasing, just like exploding. It reminds me a lot of downtown Los Angeles, like 10 years ago, which was the arts district. I should mention that Wynwood is the arts district of Miami, and so you see like tons of murals and like just like really awesome, funky, like groovy art everywhere. But it's wholly different than it was even a few years ago, because you just have like the little businesses, they just can't keep up. And so they're getting bought out. And I mean, this is just happening all the time. It didn't surprise me to see those numbers, but like, it used to be just one, like you didn't see high rises in Wynwood. It wasn't like that. And it's totally different now. Like, I mean, you could just go a few months and be like, what block am I on?
Great point.
So it foreclosure, that doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, like this great little shop that I used to go to, they had to close down because they could know their rent went from like $2,000 a month to like $10,000, and they're like, yeah, and you just can't. That's not for everybody. So it's wholly changing the scope of the entire area.
And talking about changing the whole scope of the area, Donna, there's a lot written during the pandemic about New Yorkers and Californians moving over to Miami and trying to adjust and trying to sort of settle in. Real estate is so cheap in Miami. That's why they're all sort of buying. You spent time in, you lived in Los Angeles. You wrote for the publications out in Los Angeles. Can you kind of give us some context? A, how long have you been here? And B, what was the transition like? And are we going to see these Californians who are supposedly down here right now showing off? Are they going to stick around? Does South Florida and does Miami offer everything Californians want? Or do you think it was like a short-term blip?
So I lived in Los Angeles for 20 years and I lived all over. And my last neighborhood was in the arts district in downtown LA. And we got our condo for like $430,000 in 2013. And a few years later, it was worth 1.4. I mean, it was insane. And that's what you can see happening here and all over. I mean, I know that property in Los Angeles is still like outrageously expensive, but I mean, Miami is off the chain. Like it's just completely, it's forever. I sneaked in like a ninja to get this place. I don't even know. I bought my condo for like $215 a few years ago, and now it's I don't know if people left California to come here that they're going to find a lot more money in their wallets at all. I don't see that happening. Go ahead.
No, I was saying that's interesting because all we keep hearing about how Californians are coming out here. Mayor Francis Suarez, city of Miami, he's out there promoting people relocating from San Francisco, relocating from California, relocating from Denver, and moving to Miami. As somebody from the West Coast, well, you're not originally from the West Coast, but somebody who spent 20 plus years on the West Coast coming here, is there that much of a discount? Is that much of an attraction? Or is this a little bit too much spin going on by the convention and visitor bureau types who are trying to make Miami into something that maybe it's really not?
I mean, also think about, you're talking about San Francisco, which used to be the highest, the highest rates like anywhere in the country. And now now we're talking about Miami, being neck and neck there. So, I don't know where all of this is coming from, but I mean, if you actually sit down and look at the prices of what single family houses are in say Burbank, California, compared to here, they're neck and neck. I mean, the ocean's nicer here. It's warmer. There's a lot of things that are amazing about Miami and there's a lot of things that are amazing about LA. But I don't think anybody's bragging to their West Coast, former neighbors about what a great break in price they got by moving to Miami. Not in the last few years. There's no way.
And then just to wrap it up, you mentioned $17 for a drink in Wynwood. How much would that vodka and Red Bull have cost in Los Angeles?
Well, again, that's neighborhood dependent. I mean, if you went to the kind of dive bars that I like to go to, it'd be like $8. But I mean, if you went to West Hollywood, which is a really nice area, of Los Angeles here, those prices exist, but it's always neighborhood dependent.
Got it. Well, that's great insight. John Fakler, we're going to go to you with story number 3. You're somebody who wrote about white collar crime. You wrote when you were writing full time as a journalist, you always like to kind of delve into the seedier side of South Florida. So this story is, I think, right up your alley. So I want you to give us some context. This piece is coming out of The Real Deal. I'm going to read the headline for a couple graphs, John, and then you can go ahead and give us some opinion. Coral Gables Sales Commission lawsuit turns into criminal with stalking charges. Subhead: sellers of office buildings allege broker Manny Chamiso sent them threatening texts and letters. First couple graphs: a lawsuit over allegedly unpaid commissions on the sale of a downtown Coral Gables building that involved the city's mayor became a criminal case when one of the brokers was charged with stalking the sellers. Manny Chamiso, a commercial broker at One Sotheby's International Realty, and Coral Gables mayor Vince Lago, then a real estate agent with RESF Brokerage, worked with the seller of the office building at 3251 Ponce de Leon Boulevard. They arranged a deal that fell apart in 2018 and was revived the following year when the seller renegotiated with the same buyer at a higher price. An entity called 3251 Property LLC, led by Alex Alvarez, bought the property. One Sotheby's sued the seller, All-in-One Investment Properties, in 2020, seeking what it alleged was owed about $6 million off the sale. RESF joined the lawsuit in March of last year and settled a couple months ago. Any settlement amount was not disclosed. One Sotheby's suit continues. The lawsuit alleges that Chamiso and Lago were owned a 2% commission on sale and that All-in-One Property Investments, Eddie Fernandez, secretly went behind the broker's backs to continue negotiating and ultimately close a deal with them. The commission comes out to about $120,000. Lo and behold, the story goes on. It's going to say that, this person was allegedly involved with stalking, so-called stalking. Mr. Fakler, why don't you give us your take on it? And what is a broker to do if some buyer is pulling an end around on them? Aren't they, entitled to try to run down their money? So what's your take on it, Mr. Fakler?
Yeah, Peter, I wanted to give a shout out to the author of this story, Catherine Kalergis. She is the author of this story, and she really cracks skulls on it, really underscoring, the cutthroat nature of Miami real estate market. It's bad enough when things are bad, but I guess it's cutthroat when things are good as well. Kind of makes you wonder, how many deals have gone sideways over commissions, and also commissions combined with hardball tactics that involve violence or threats of violence amongst brokers and sellers. I don't know if that happens, if it's an everyday occurrence, but I would guess it isn't. But I also would guess that since there's a mayor that's involved in this, who used to be a real estate agent, I'm sure that's even more rare. But who knows? It's, this is only in Miami. Corruption is sort of legendary here, particularly the different types of stories. I mean, here we got a mayor who was a former real estate agent, and he was teamed up with this Chamiso. Is that how you say his name?
I think so. Yep.
Yeah, and all they wanted to do was wet their beak for 2% commission on the sale. The deal goes sideways, and All in One, who was the entity that was the seller, they decide that listen, we're going to go behind their backs, and we're going to make the deal. So, interestingly enough, Sotheby's, this is still active, the actual lawsuit. However, it transitioned into a criminal complaint, where, it's involving stalking and harassment. Recently, the charge was actually upgraded to a felony. So, this thing is kind of serious. And, there were allegedly threats against the principals. Against, I guess Fernandez is the CEO of the company, and his wife as well. I won't go into the details because they're pretty unseemly. But they basically ordered to pay up or shut up. And as far as the threats go, and this is all according to court records, so this is on the books. It's by the way, they pled not guilty, so that's also on the books. So, and no one is really commenting on the story. So, again, really intense and deep reporting done by Catherine. And I really appreciate seeing that, because we're not seeing a lot of that kind of reporting anymore, particularly with the layoffs. I know we talked about this last week. We don't see a lot of local boots on the ground reporting anymore. And I just really appreciated the story.
It definitely was a good story. And real estate commissions, good luck trying to collect. And if you are able to collect a real estate commission, I could say this, I've had a license since the early 90s. If you are able to collect a commission, a lot of times you get renegotiated at the table, 11th hour renegotiation. Typically, there's something that pops up late and the buyer and seller can't agree on a price, but they both know that chances are the brokers, they want to get the deal done because you eat what you kill in real estate. And therefore, they ask the brokers to typically reduce their commissions. And what inevitably happens is the realtors are out on it. So that being said, let's go ahead. We'll take a commercial break. On the side of break, we're getting our next 3 stories. This is Peter Zalewski of the Condo Vultures podcast. I hope you're enjoying the podcast. And I wanted to alert you that if you have a property that you're looking to sell in the Tri-County, South Florida area, I would encourage you to reach out to Jenny Cortez, a licensed real estate broker with cvrrealty.com. She's my partner. She's been in the business for north of 15 years. More importantly, she knows the market. She knows how to get a deal done. And she also realizes that it's more important to get a price that you can accept and sell the property rather than to hold firm on some price that's never going to be achieved and ultimately languish on the market. So if you're looking to do a deal that you want a skilled expert who can help you sell a property, reach out to Jenny Cortez at 305-865-5859, 305-865-5859, or visit her website, cvrrealty.com. Welcome back to the Miami Reporters Roundtable. I'm your host, Peter Zalewski from Condo Vultures. We're going to discuss 3 more articles that I pulled. I forwarded on to the journalists, asked them to give them a read and give us their take on it. So for story number 4, Jean, we're going to go to you, Jean Gruss. This is a piece out of CNBC. Let me read you the headline, and I'll read you the first couple key points. CNBC does key points instead of, in addition to the regular story. So here we go, Jean. Headline: mortgage demand drops as bank failures hit jumbo loan rates. And the 3 key points: the average contract interest rate for 30-year fixed rate mortgages with conforming loan balances of $726,200 or less decreased at 6.5% from 6.55%. Point number 2, mortgage applications to purchase a home dropped 2% last week compared with the previous week. And point number 3, the spread between the conforming and the jumbo mortgage rates narrowed once again. John, what's going on with the mortgage rate? Why don't you give us your take on it?
Well, I mean, without getting into the weeds of the mortgage business, I would just like to say that, with all this regional banking crisis going on, that getting loans is going to be harder. I mean, credit is tightening already. I think regional banks do a significant amount of small business lending, and particularly commercial real estate lending. And so when you're talking about the business of Florida, which is real estate, this is going to have a significant impact. So, it's not just the mortgage business, residential real estate, but it's also the commercial real estate business and small business. So I think already you're seeing a significant tightening of credit because regional banks are holding onto their capital because they're afraid that all these deposits are going to fly out the door and they're going to have to cover for those. And so they're not lending, they're hoarding their capital. And that's creating tightening conditions. And we're all going to feel it. We're going to feel it if we're looking for a residential real estate loan, or if we need a loan for our small business to get inventory. We're gonna feel it in commercial real estate. Developers are going to have a harder time obtaining loans for their new projects. So I think it's it's in the next 6 to 12 months. I would anticipate we're going to have significant credit tightening, and that's what's going on.
And Sean, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is intentional, and this is the plan by the Federal Reserve, and they get to tinker with something called the federal funds rate to try to slow down the economy in order to bring down inflation, which was as high as 8, 9, 10%. It's slowly coming back, but all of this is intentional. Am I right about that?
Yeah, it is intentional. I mean, the mechanics of it are taking some people by surprise. I mean, I think a lot of people have been somewhat surprised by the crisis in the regional banking system. And it has its own reasons, primarily mismanagement by the banks themselves. But obviously the Federal Reserve wants to cool things down to tamp down inflation. So yeah, credit is going to tighten, and those are the conditions that we're looking at for the next 6 to 12 months at least.
Yeah. Great analysis. Thank you for that, John. Donna, we're going to go on to you. This is a piece that is coming out of Miami-Dade publication that's celebrating actually its 40-year anniversary. The
Nice.
editor and publisher over there originally came from Miami News. Once Miami News was defunct, went ahead and started Miami-Dade with some others. So 40 years and still kicking. So Michael
Very
Lewis
cool.
of Miami-Dade, if you're out there, congratulations. Keep it going. So Donna, here's the headline here, first couple graphs, and then I want to get your take on it. And this is a place that's close to your heart because you actually lived in the neighborhood. So you can give us this straight talk rather than maybe what some of the developers and the realtors are saying. So let me read the headline, first couple graphs. 46-story tower with 430 units planned for Park West. Some people are referring to that area now as Miami World Center area. So first couple graphs. A new mixed-use residential skyscraper is planned for the Park West neighborhood of Miami, right next door to the rising Miami World City Center district. The developer refers to the project as Project NMA, and it's to include 46 stories, 430 residential units, about 7,500 square feet of ground floor commercial and parking space for 455 vehicles. It's located at 1080 North Miami Avenue. City's Urban Development Review Board discussed the project at its April meeting, and members raised some concerns. Attorneys representing the developer asked for a voluntary deferral until May and are to return with an updated plan taking into consideration items that the board raised. The board wants more details on design, sliding glass doors to the balconies, more information on the mechanical systems and air conditioning, assurances that vehicles in the garage podium are concealed, and more. Donna, why don't you give us an idea of what this area is like today and whether or not an additional 46-story tower with 430 residential units is needed or is not needed?
Not by those people. Oh my God. I honestly, my advice to anybody who finds their pictures pretty or whatever, they're putting out there, run, absolutely run. Do not rent from these people. So the area is actually, it's where Paramount, which is, I think, one of the tallest ones still that's down there, that's right there in Park West, and it's a Miami World Center property. It continues to be aesthetically really pleasing, but I mean, that whole area is, they've got the E11 tower residences and that hotel that's going to be going up. So, that area is going to be just completely clogged. You're not going to be able to turn around without swinging a Prada bag and hitting someone directly in the face. And I would start with the staff from the place. No, the staff's really cool. I don't mean that. Let me take that back. And I would start with management. I lived in Paramount, and it was just, I thought it was going to be the year of living luxuriously, like the year that Donna goes luxury. And I would rather have been under a bridge. It was really awful. It was so awful. Like management just does not care. And like, I'm somebody who, like, when I have trash, I throw it away down the trash compactor. The people who live there, they would just open their doors and put it in the hallway. I'm like, what is with this place? So, but in terms of the area in general, it's beautiful. I mean, obviously it's like high end everything. I had to look up how to use my stove on Google, like because I've never lived somewhere that was like, that had, everything that was just that super new and beautiful. But I just feel like there's a lot of mismanagement
in that area. And Donna, what about traffic? My office is located not too far from that area, and I take the train, the Metro Rail, and I see the cars bumper to bumper to bumper. Everybody's backed up, especially in the morning or in the evening. What's it like in terms of living there, getting in and out? Can you have a car, and is it a good lifestyle, or can it be a challenge with a car?
I mean, if you work far away, like if you're going to live in Park West and you're going to say, like work in Lauderdale or something, then I guess you have to have a car. But I mean, I gave up my car when I lived in the area because there's so many options for public transit, and I'm a big walker. And so it was always kind of fun walking between the horn honking and like the grills and everybody just like up each other's butts. And there was always, at Paramount, there was always some new car getting crashed into the gates, which I thought was kind of funny in the garage. But yeah, it's a very walkable area. It's very public transit. And just know that if you're in a car, just, allow yourself more time, for God's sake.
And Donna, in terms of the Miami World Center area, it's a whole stretch of blocks that are owned by a developer who's sold off some property. He's building some of his own properties. What's the vibe like around the Miami World Center? What do you think the outlook is for the World Center, given the fact that, we just talked about mortgages becoming much more difficult to obtain. We're talking about how the Federal Reserve is trying to slow down the economy. Is this something that can soldier on through a pullback in the economy, or is this more so this Miami World Center, or is it more so something that was a fad while interest rates were zero, mortgages were cheap, and New Yorkers and California were coming down here initially?
I mean, did they even talk about groundbreaking? Do we have a timeline for that?
They're still going through the process. Let's say it's a year out or so. We'll just ballpark it. Say about a year out or so.
Well, I mean, they clearly have, a very specific idea of what they want to do to that whole area. And so, I mean, I don't see them getting thwarted by the interest rates. I mean, they're on a mission, and I mean, Paramount's still standing, and they went through a lot. They had a lot of lender issues, and I still don't know the occupancy rate of it, but I mean, it's very aesthetically, it's very beautiful. Like, I mean, they're putting in super high-end stores, and they've done a lot with art. I will definitely give them credit for that. They've put a lot of money into a lot of public artwork that's out there, and it's actually a really nice area to just like walk around. And they have a soccer field, like one of the buildings has a soccer field, and like dog parks. It's like it's very pretty, but just know what you're going in for.
Understood. Well, thanks for that context, Donna. Mr. Fakler, we're going to go on to you. This is a piece coming in the Miami New Times. I'll read you the headline and read you the first couple graphs. Headline: Sirius XM celebrates the opening of its Miami Beach studio. First couple graphs. It's 11:30 on Friday morning, 2 days before the Miami Grand Prix, and the Jonas Brothers are rehearsing in the performance space at the Sirius XM gleaming new Miami Beach studio. The siblings are about to play a brief unplugged set for a handful of fans, but the satellite radio broadcaster is taking advantage of the trio's presence to record more content. The celebrity session set will be broadcast later on in the day on Hits 1, Sirius XM's top 40 station. The Jonas Brothers also will record 2 interviews with Hits 1 hosts, one with the fan Q&A before the set, and one with the program director for the adult contemporary station, The Pulse. They finish off with recording radio bumpers and rapid fire Krusty the Clown style. Previously, the satellite radio broadcaster, which runs more than 150 full-time channels to over 34 million subscribers, could only have done this kind of thing in its existing studios in New York, Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., and Nashville. By opening the facility in Miami Beach, which includes studio and recording spaces, as well as office space for marketing and business employees. It hopes to take advantage of the city's growing cultural capital as a high-end destination popular with celebrity musicians. Joe Jonas lives here, for instance, as well as on its prominence in the Latin music industry. Mr. Factor, SiriusXM's coming down here. They really headlined it by rolling out a disc jockey, you can call him that, from the 1980s. A guy called Howard Stern. They made a movie about him last century. Mr. Fakler, does it make sense for SiriusXM to come down here? And what kind of appeal does somebody like Howard Stern have, who's now 69 years old, according to Google? Is he after a certain demographic, which is the retiree, or is this something a little bit more to it? What say you? SiriusXM as well as Howard Stern.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting because don't forget Howard Stern's show is the flagship program on Sirius. So the idea of getting him down here, which they did, they broadcast live from the new studio, sort of puts their rubber stamp on this. I just think it's slick marketing. They're using Miami as an international cultural destination, which it is now. I mean, it's been getting there, but it really is now. The timing of the studio launch is also interesting because they timed it with the Formula One race. And I thought that was genius because of all the celebrities that are here for Formula One. LL Cool J, others that were all part of it. Everything's being recorded on the studio. So they're using everything and putting it all together as a programming gimmick, which is, I think, is working. Listen, Miami is prominent in the Latin music industry. It's just the way it is. I thought it was interesting that the Sirius CEO, guy named Greenstein, said that they want to find a way of making the first bilingual, bicultural studio here. And the idea is to increase its Latin music footprint with this new studio. They even had Pitbull that was involved in this. So you're getting a lot of celebrity attraction. Sirius, by the way, Sirius and Formula One have the same parent, which is the CEO said it was just a coincidence, a strategic coincidence, but it was a pretty good strategy. So everybody's involved. I thought it was brilliant. I mean, as far as going forward, it's going to only help the Latin music cultural environment.
So, Mr. Fakler, one of our previous podcasts, we talked about the Delano or the Delano, and say it however you want. People go back and forth on it, which was popular in the 1990s. So now it's being repositioned. They're going to take that brand. They're going to take it, I guess, worldwide. And I asked at the time, is any millennial or any Generation Z going to know what the hell it is? So I ask you again, does any millennial or any Generation Z, do they know who the hell Howard Stern is, a 69-year-old guy? And what kind of cachet can he bring by coming to Miami Beach? Or is it more so for his demographic, which tends to be those people who are retiring nowadays? So aren't we just seeing Miami Beach sort of turn into like a retirement area, much like it was before the refurbishment in the Johnny Versace back in the 1990s?
I disagree with you on that.
Okay.
I disagree. I think he's still well known among millennials, Gen X's. And I think putting him out front, it certainly can't hurt them with the younger demographic. I don't think it's for the older demographic. I think this is really a move towards younger, hip, Latin influencers as well as Latin musicians. Because the area has been going that way, but it's now really putting its stamp with this. And I think it's also great marketing for them, for getting more subscribers. I forgot what the number was. The number of subscribers, they got like 34 million subscribers, something like that. So this can only increase their subscription base, I think.
Interesting. Okay, well, we'll see.
I could be wrong. I've been wrong in the past, as we know.
No, well, we are in this world of hybrid work, and you can live one place and work somewhere else. So you got to wonder about a studio in Miami, especially as we go into hot and humid days. I don't know how many celebrities are going to be here. Maybe coming from the southern hemisphere. I don't know how many are coming to town as we get into hurricane season.
But by the way, Howard Stern is not moving his studio from New York here. He's still, this is just a one-off to help publicize this new studio.
Got it. Okay, thanks for that clarification. So with that, we're going to take a commercial break. Other side of the break, we're going to have a group discussion about a story that came up recently, and I want to hear what the journalists have to say about it. This is Peter Zalewski of the Condo Vultures podcast. Before I started doing these podcasts, I was in the business of being a licensed real estate broker, a contributing columnist for the Miami Herald as well as the Miami Real Deal, but also extra witness work in consulting. So if you are looking for an expert witness, or if you're looking for consulting services, a straight talk perspective as to what's going on in a particular marketplace, a building, or what happened previously, for whatever your situation is, whether you are an attorney, whether you are a institutional fund looking to invest, or whether you're a lender who's trying to come up with some sort of strategy and approach for your lending committee going forward, I just might be able to help you. To get a hold of me, please reach out to Peter@CondoVultures.com. That's Peter@CondoVultures.com, or give me a call to the office at 305-865-5859, 305-865-5859. Welcome back to the Miami Reporters Roundtable. I'm your host, Peter Zalewski from Condo Vultures. We are not going to have a discussion about a story that just came up, and I want to see what the journalists have to think about it. And the idea is that there was an American dream. The American dream went something like this. I want the next generation, my kids, to go ahead and be more prosperous than I was. I want them to make more money, be better educated, have a better way of life, if you will. And for a lot of people, American dream is achieved by actually purchasing your own place, whether it's a condominium or it's a house. Now we're going to talk about something that's a little bit different. It's called fractional ownership. And there's a story that came out of the Real Deal. So I'm going to read the first couple graphs. Then I want to just sort of see if the journalists can sort of chime in as to whether or not this is a good thing, this is a bad thing. And we are in a community where fraud is widespread, whether it be healthcare fraud, it'd be real estate fraud, it'd be brokers stalking, people involved with a real estate transaction, much like we just discussed in this podcast. So those are the 2 points I'm going to kind of hit on, if we can, from the journalists. So here's the headline. Here's the first couple graphs, and let's see where this goes. Headline, again, coming out of the Real Deal. Miami Beach imposes regulations for fractional ownership homes. New rules require second home companies like Picasso to have a property manager on call. The first couple graphs. Companies offering fractional ownership of luxury properties in Miami will have to follow new city regulations. Miami Beach City Commission on Friday unanimously approved on the ordinance that requires condominiums and single-family homes that are owned by investors that buy shares of a property to abide by the city's new law that bans short-term rentals in some neighborhoods. The fractional ownership ordinance is largely targets Picasso, a San Francisco-based tech company that allows investors to purchase as little as 1/8 interest in second homes. In Miami Beach, Picasso is offering investment opportunities on condominium and 2 single-family homes on the Venetian Isles and on Alton Road, according to the company's website. The minimum investment for the 3 properties ranges from $385,000 to $867,000. So I guess the question to everybody, and we can go in whatever order you want, and you can just sort of chime in, is the American dream gone in South Florida, where the only way most people will be able to get into a property, apparently, is to buy as little as 1/8 of a piece of real estate in South Florida? So is the American dream gone? Who wants to chime in? And what are the positives or the negatives of fractional ownership?
Well, you can buy 1/52nd ownership in a timeshare.
There you go. I guess we got a point there, John.
We've had timeshares, since the 1970s, with plenty of fraud, I might add. People are still buying them. You can't sell them. They're hard to sell. They're virtually impossible to sell, actually. But I mean, that's fractional ownership, is it not? And we have fractional ownership of jets. I mean, you could buy a fraction of a corporate jet and have, like, Condo Vultures Airways.
I like the sounds of that, John. I like the sounds of that. Mr. Fakler,
Yeah.
Donna, do you guys have an opinions? I mean, is John right? Is this simply just the modern era timeshare coming out of San Francisco? So suddenly it's hotter than maybe it should be?
Well, if you go deep into the story, you see there's a lot of issues with zoning. This has been talked about for a while. Interesting little nugget. Today, Airbnb stock was down 10% based on their earnings and their future outlook. And I'm wondering, I haven't read the earnings report. I'm wondering how much of that has to do with the blowback of zoning, with cities not allowing Airbnb in certain areas of the city. I think it went into that a little bit in the story. I think there may be some headwinds there as far as the zoning issues. So I'm not sure if that's a positive or negative as far as fractional ownership, because it seems to me they're getting much more strict with the regulations. If you read into that story, and I suggest our viewers and listeners perhaps get a copy of that. because it really does go into the ups and downs of the whole idea of the strategy.
Donna, you, I think I could say this because it's in public records. You own a place in Miami. You have a condo. If you were looking to sell it, and I'm not saying you are, would you want to sell it to one individual, or would you like to break it up into eighths and sell a piece to a variety of different people? What do you make of that? Would you consider that as an option? Why didn't I sell off an eighth? Maybe I need to drum up some cash, or maybe I want to take some money off the table. And let me sell an eighth of a property. What do you make of that?
I don't need any more financial calculus in my life. I'll tell you that right now. No. Like, as an owner, I would rather for me, I feel like it would be easier as the owner to just sell to one person and not have it be all like tiny little pieces. But I got to say, like, in terms of the American dream, I think that it's changed a lot, obviously. And, I see the attraction for wanting to buy into something as like a fractional owner, because people, at least a lot of the younger folks today, they don't want to be in one place for the next 45 years. They want to move around, and they want to visit here, and they want to go there, and they want to be part of so many different places, like, hopscotching the globe. So, I mean, I can see how it's very attractive to younger folks that, maybe they just don't see things the way their parents or their grandparents did, in terms of like, oh, the almighty American dream of like owning one place and putting down roots in that place for the next 50 years.
Interesting. Would anybody on the panel, would any of you invest in 1/8 of a house on the Venetian Isles or a condo in South Beach?
If it was a second home.
Exactly.
And plus, I think technology has helped manage, the process probably a little bit more easily than it would have without it. And I got to say, to John Fakler's point, the city of Miami Beach tried to regulate Airbnb a few years ago, and they lost badly. I have to say that, like, any attempts to regulate, I think, is doomed to fail, just because of property rights. But,
and what about fraud? A lot of fraud goes on in South Florida. A lot of fraud goes on in the state of Florida. A variety of different industries. How confident or comfortable would each or any of you be in investing in 1/8 of a condominium or a house? And what happens if the other 7/8 they decide to do something and you don't? I know it's all going to be written into the contract, but maybe you could be the one that blocks the vote. You could almost filibuster like they do in Congress if you don't want, so it creates all these issues. But what about fraud? Would you guys be comfortable thinking that the legal system in the United States and in Florida would be able to help you get your money back? Or is it like Jean says, timeshare, but with a nice little spin on it?
Well, every HOA has like fraud in South Florida, right? So it's every week almost. I think last week we had a story about HOA fraud. And when you buy into a condo, you're buying into a share of a building. You're owning a portion of the real estate in combination with 50, 100, 200, 300 other homeowners. So it's the same principle. You're just a fractional owner. So you still have fraud. You still have all the issues that are with fractional ownership in condo or HOA type of arrangements today.
So Mr. Fakler, is John right that this is simply a bunch of old shit just polished up with some lipstick on a pig?
Absolutely. It's just, I thought the exact same thing when he was describing that. It's putting lipstick on a pig, but it's creative though.
Definitely creative. It's coming out of San Francisco. So who knows? Maybe some of those Californians are all moving here like we keep hearing about. Maybe they're going to be buying fractional ownership. So anybody want to make a last comment before we go ahead and shut this podcast down? Okay, hearing none. I want to thank our panelists. Let's thank John Gruss. John was a journalist for over 25 years. Right now he has a public relations marketing firm called Gruss Communications. You can get him at GrussPR.com. That's GRUSSPR.com. Also want to thank John Fakler. John was a reporter for over 20 years, wrote about white-collar crime, did business stories, also did a restaurant review. If you want to get a hold of John, you can get a hold of him. His email is fakler@consultant.com. That's Fakler at consultant, singular.com. And I want to thank Donna Evans. Donna has been a journalist for over 25 years. Her work has appeared out in Los Angeles, as well as in Miami, and she's taught over at FIU's journalism school. If anybody wants to get a hold of Donna, you can get her at cocoparkland.com. That's COCOPARKLAND at gmail.com. And I'm Peter Zalewski of Condo Vultures. Thank you for tuning in. Let me remind you, if you have any comments for us, any questions, send an email to inquiry@condovultures.com. That's IAQUIRY, condovultures.com. And also, too, if you listen to this podcast and you want to watch it, you want to see the faces behind the voices, go to any platform that provides for video, such as Spotify. You can look us up on YouTube, where the handle is Condo Vultures TV. Until next time, take care of yourself, and we'll catch up soon. Ciao, ciao.
Don't buy a South Florida condo, discounted or distressed, before taking a Condo Vultures correction tour. CondoVultures.com offers weekly bus and walking tours that focus on educating buyers on the how-tos of identifying discounted condos, analyzing the opportunities, and purchasing units. Every tour attendee receives a list of all condo projects in a particular market, a market assessment handout, and unmatched expert analysis. For more information on the condo correction tours, please visit condovultures.eventbrite.com.